What are some of the backup options for shortstop if Ha-Seong Kim doesn't come back? And are the Atlanta Braves looking to change their pitching philosophy? I'll answer those questions and many more on today's Mailbag episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at shortstop. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below so others can find us on YouTube on the audio side, where we still get the majority of our listeners. Thank you so much for your support as well. And you can help others find us on the podcast side. Just leave us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Big shout out to all my everydayers out there who do comment on every video. Join us live when you get the opportunity. I do appreciate all the support. This is our weekly mailbag episode. As usual, got a wide variety of questions to answer. Several of them about the shortstop position if Ha-Seong Kim doesn't return. Got some questions about the Braves possibly changing up their pitching philosophy based on the removal of Paul Davis yesterday. So a lot to get into on today's mailbag episode, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Well, as always on our weekly mailbag episodes, I'm just going to run down the list of questions as I see them under the post. And if you're not familiar, maybe you're new to the show, I send out a tweet every Friday morning from LockedOn_Braves on X. You respond to that post with your question to be answered on Friday afternoon's mailbag episode. First one from PJ's Braves, who says, how do you think the possibility of a work stoppage in 2027 could impact this offseason in general? Do you think it will impact how AA approaches the offseason? I've been asked this question a few times now, and I wish I had a better answer for you, but I just don't think we quite know the extent. I think for me as a GM, and really I think an agent too, I think you have to approach it as if the season's going to get played and that it's no different no matter what. And I think that's how most people will approach it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see players that maybe want that extra year to try to push through that. I mean, nobody wants to look, I'm hoping that there's not going to be a complete loss of season in 2027. I don't think it will get to that. But while there's a work stoppage, they're obviously not getting paid. And you wouldn't want to have that be your final season and then go into free agency after that. We saw, after the last, we didn't have a work stoppage, but we had the long delay in the offseason and all of that, how teams were a little bit more hesitant to spend money. And so I think that is definitely something to consider. And I think it'll be something that takes into consideration. I just think for me, trying to put myself in a GM seat or an agent seat, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal as maybe some people believe. Because I've been asked this question numerous times already. And maybe it's because I'm not giving you a good answer is why it keeps getting asked. But I just don't think there is one. I don't think we can fully know and understand that impact. I think most people, like I said, if it were me, I think you just have to work under the assumption that it's going to be played and that there's not going to be a work stoppage. And so I just don't think there's going to be that much. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But again, as I keep saying, when I answer this question, let me know what do you think? Because I've yet to have somebody tell me what they think it really could impact in terms of negotiations and length of contracts and money. I guess you could say if a player is hopeful that there's going to be some changes in how contracts are structured, like if there is going to be I think, all right, I'm peeling back the layers here as I think about it even more. If there is going to be a salary cap or a salary floor, which seems to be what the big topic is going to be in this work stoppage, then maybe that does have more of an impact, good or bad, depending on what level of player you are. I mean, if you're, a higher paid player, you're one of the top free agents, you may want to go ahead and just get that as big of a bag as possible as you can right now, because if there is some sort of salary cap implemented, we may not see the $700 million contracts anymore. I don't know. And none of us really know what it looks like, which is why, again, it's really hard to answer this question. However, if there's a salary floor and you're going to have teams that are spending more money and we think that that money is going to go to older type players, maybe you're a journeyman, maybe you want to try to wait a little bit and wait till after that new CBA is in effect, because maybe it helps you get a little bit more money. So that's the only things that I can really think of, again, as I, try to peel back and see what could happen. We just don't know. So it's really hard to tell the impact of it. Next question from Caleb Cook, who says, long shot question here, but is Aaron Boone a possibility in Atlanta if he is relieved of his duties in New York? Not saying it's what I want, but just as a thought as to why maybe AA hasn't made a move. I think there are other not even managers, coaches currently still in the postseason that are probably delaying it more than Aaron Boone would. I'll say this, though. If Aaron Boone were to get dismissed, I definitely think he's worth an interview. Like I said, I don't know that he would be my favorite guy. I'm pretty certain he wouldn't be my favorite, but I think he would definitely deserve some consideration. And again, we haven't heard anything from the Yankees. I've speculated this too. If the Yankees took an early exit, wasn't quite an early exit. They did beat their rivals in the wild card round, but then were dismissed pretty quickly and efficiently in the division series. So, the Yankees, their World Series or bust, and haven't had that for quite a while. I kind of like a former Yankees manager, and Joe Girardi too, as well. But again, I don't think either of those guys would move towards the top of my list. You could maybe put him at number 3, because as I talked about in yesterday's episode, if you haven't listened to that, I gave my top 3 managerial candidates. And I said after George Lombard and David Ross, I think there's a big gap. And I think you can put a lot of guys in that 3rd spot. I put Rocco there, but I think if Boone were to get dismissed, I think it'd be the same thing. Manager who, is getting dismissed because he's not winning a World Series every year, which is not realistic. But certainly with that roster and with where the American League is, he should be in the World Series pretty much every year. But I think you could put him in that 3rd spot, is basically what I'm trying to say. I wouldn't hate the idea of Aaron Boone, but he wouldn't move to the top of my list. Matt H says, can you rank the potential open manager jobs from the perspective of the manager? So some of this is going to be subjective because, obviously the managers kind of get to decide where they want to be. But I think if you look at it as to what I think the best job openings are right now, I know I'm biased, but I think the Braves are the best one. You go down the list right now. Obviously the Rangers have already, locked theirs up with Skip Schumacher, which I think probably would have been near the top. I mean, they just won a World Series. They showed that they were willing to spend money to win that World Series. So I think the Giants would be near the top. I think the Rangers would be near the top, but they've already obviously locked theirs up. I think the Giants are near the top. It's a team that spent money in the past. They are in a very tough division, but, people seem to be pretty positive about Buster Posey and what he's doing over there. I think the Angels would have to be near the bottom. Like I said, I think the Braves are at the top. I mean, you're talking about a team that, again, has showed the willingness to spend, be top 5, at least top 10 in payroll. They already have a core that is there. Yes, they need to step up and do better, but it's a core that's there, that's ready to win now. I just think it's a great situation. The Rockies are obviously at the bottom. Nationals are near the bottom, but a team that, again, has shown in the past that, they will spin, and they have a young core coming up. So I don't think the Nationals are as bad as maybe many people think. They do have a lot of solid young talent, and they've shown a willingness to spend before. I think the Twins, like I talked about yesterday with the dismissal of Rocco Baldelli, from what I gather, just reading articles on the Twins, I think that front office is a little bit in turmoil at the moment. And I think they're kind of on shaky ground. So I think that one would be near the bottom. I think the Orioles are right there kind of in the middle. They have, obviously a good farm system, and they have a lot of young talent. They just need some direction, and they need some help from the front office to spend to supplement that young talent. So if it weren't for that fact, if I knew that the Orioles would spend more, I would put them higher, because I do think they have a nice young core there. But I'd probably put them middle of the pack. I put the Braves to the top, probably followed by the Giants, then maybe the Orioles. And then I think all the rest are pretty easily near the bottom. The Angels, the Rockies, the Twins. I probably put the Nationals after the Giants there. And then the rest of them I think are pretty easily near the bottom of the list. All right, that's just a few of the questions to get to on today's episode. We'll pick up with some more of your questions here next. The NFL season and the MLB playoffs are here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff and the first pitch with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel allows you to bet the way that you like with player props, building same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. You want to go out and check out the awards odds out there, you can do that on FanDuel.com. You want to see the World Series favorites. The Dodgers are the pretty heavy favorites right now, with the Toronto Blue Jays behind them and the Seattle Mariners right behind them as well. I don't see the Philadelphia Phillies on this list. What happened to them? But you can see all those odds right there at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Are you ready? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. They'll get you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball. The guys from MLB Game Night still going through the postseason, bringing you the best highlights. They'll be talking about that errant throw from Orion Kirkring, starting to feel kind of bad for that guy at this point. But you can get all that there at Locked On MLB. We'll be back next week with 5 more episodes, keeping you up to date on the manager search. We'll also start doing some player previews or recaps and previews next week as well. So look forward to that on next week's episodes of Locked On Braves. Getting back into our questions here. The next one from a Baltimore Braves fan says, if things don't work out with Kim, do you think the Braves should consider trading for Royce Lewis? Twins are rebuilding, so they're willing to move him. Could be a high-risk, high-reward move for a former top prospect. Here's the thing. With the injuries Royce Lewis has had, there's no way I'm putting him at the shortstop position. Just can't do it. I do think the Twins are a team that AA needs to call this offseason. As I said earlier, I think their front office kind of in turmoil. Don't really know where they're going over there. But I think they need to call them up for some pitching. Whether Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, I think they need to go after the Twins and see maybe they're doing kind of a soft rebuild, reset over there, whatever the case may be, and try and take advantage of that. But I'm not getting Royce Lewis and putting him at shortstop with all the injuries that he's had in his career. Matt Card says, not sure if you saw Ozzy's cryptic Instagram post, but he did say on to what's next. You think A may have informed him his option wasn't getting picked up? I know it's relatively inexpensive, but maybe that hand wrist issue will be a big problem going forward. I know I'm on Instagram for Locked On Braves, but I don't get on Instagram very often. I did see somebody kind of reposted on X, where I am more active. And I think it was said that Ozzy sends that message out every year. So it's not anything unusual. I would be surprised, one, if Ozzy, kind of put that message out there with that in mind. And I would also be surprised if the Braves don't pick up the option. Even if you pick up the option and you want to move on from Ozzy, that's a tradable contract. So I don't think that's what Ozzy's post was about. Another one from Matt, who says, I know you mentioned this, but watching the playoffs has made it obvious again. Having elite stuff coming out of the back end of the pen is game changing, and the Braves probably need to add 2 guys who can bring gas. We have too much finesse with guys like Bummer, Lee, and Pierce. So I don't disagree. And that's why I think guys like Daysbell, Lara, others, Roldy Munoz, even guys with that big velocity, big time stuff. In the postseason, you want to miss bats. I talk about this all the time, and I made this point, and Braves fans have tried to push back, but go look at the numbers. Clearly, Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine were better overall pitchers than John Smoltz throughout their career. But John Smoltz is one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. Why? Because he had dominant stuff. He missed bats, and that stuff plays up in the postseason. And so I do think you need stuff. You need stuff that misses bats. And just take Max Fried, for instance. Great pitcher, wonderful pitcher. Would love to have him on my team. Come postseason time, though, he's hit or miss. And there's been a lot of miss with Max Fried. But you got Game 6. I'll never forget that. And it's because he's more of a contact pitcher. And it's not necessarily swing and miss stuff. And when it comes to postseason time, you just want to take out any chance that you possibly can. And when you have swing and miss stuff like that, it's going to play up in those situations. So, yeah, I mean, that's been the case for a while now. You want big time stuff in the postseason, it plays up more. My teams keep letting me down says, do you think the new head of pitching change means they are shifting philosophies and not chasing velocity more? So it's an interesting question. Right on the heels of the question that we just answered, I don't think so. And there's another question about this too. If I can find it real quick, I'll go ahead and get to it. Michael, Culture Geek says, what's your take on the Braves releasing Paul Davis? Just an org decision or a sign of totally retooling of the staff? Also, do you think we see Troy Snicker finding the way into the org? So Troy Snicker did get let go by the Astros, which is interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds his way into the organization some way. But as far as the change in pitching philosophies, like it's going to be, as we just talked about with the other question, it's always going to be about chasing stuff and chasing velocity and chasing dominant stuff. And a lot of people said after the pitching change, or the change to the director of pitching development, is because there's too many injuries. And I laughed at that on yesterday's episode. Do you not follow other teams? It's not like the Braves are the only team that deals with pitching injuries. It is the environment today where you're going to chase spin. You're chasing velocity. Why? Because that stuff's effective, and that stuff is what gets people out. And we're never going to go backwards. We're just not, even though it is, I think, very much related to all the pitcher injuries we're seeing today. I mean, there's data that can show you pitching injuries are on the rise the same time that the average fastball velocity is on the rise. I don't think that's a coincidence. But are you going to make a pitching philosophy change to tell your pitchers to be worse for the possible benefit of they're going to stay healthier? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So if that is what they're doing, I think it's dumb, because why would you not want your pitchers to be better? I mean, injuries are going to happen, and yes, they're going to be more prevalent when you're chasing spin and you're chasing velocity, but you can't tell somebody to be worse. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't understand that argument from people. And I hope that's not what the Braves are doing, because it makes absolutely zero sense to me. LeBronathan Jr. says, if negotiations with Kim don't work out, could you see AA and the Braves taking a chance on Anthony Volpe? Seems like a low risk, high reward move, similar to the Kelenic trade, and the Yankees seem to be done with him. It's tough to answer this on the heels of the Jared Kelenic situation, because that was such a disaster. But I don't hate the idea. I don't hate it as long as it doesn't prevent you from doing other things. The part of the issue with the Kelenic move is that there were other parts of the team that needed to be improved upon, and it felt like the move for Kelenic stopped you from doing some of those things the last couple of offseason. And that's part of my frustration with the Jared Kelenic thing. I didn't mind it at the time. You're taking a chance that a guy, maybe you can figure some things out with him, but it felt like all the money you spent to make that happen, you could have spent that money to get more solid, concrete answers in other spots. You look at Anthony Volpe right now. He shows he has 3 minor league options left. He's a free agent after the 2028 season. He's arbitration eligible coming up this first year. I think it's his first year of arbitration. Again, I don't hate the idea. He had 3.5 F4 in 2024, just 1 this season. He's been a good defender, although the throws are an issue. But you're talking about a guy with an 83, 87, 83 WRC plus in his 3 big league seasons. Now, that is better than what you've been getting from both Nick Allen and Orlando Arcia the last couple of years. Strikeout rates of 28, 23, and 25%, with walk rates of 9, 6, and 7. Now, he is still young. He's 24 years old. He's under control for a while. So again, I don't hate it, but it does give me some very bad vibes coming on the heels of what happened with Jared Kelenic. But if that's it's crazy to say, but that is an upgrade from what you've had. It's not a huge upgrade, but again, if you're banking on him making some improvements, then it could be a good move. Like I said, what does that look like? Are you having to spend another $24 million, and then are you having to move around a bunch of contracts? It didn't help with the Jared Kelenic thing too, that you got stuck with David Fletcher in all of that. But again, it depends on what all the moves look like, but I don't mind it as a backup option for shortstop. Calvin Fenner with a two-part question. First one says, I really think Boris will take Ha-Seong Kim to free agency, putting the Braves in a predicament. Do you think we could match up with the Cubs on a Nico Hoerner trade? He played shortstop before, but Anthony arrived in Chicago and was solid. I just don't think Ha-Seong Kim will be a reasonable price. I've kind of dismissed Nico Hoerner in the past, but again, it would be an upgrade. And I mean, it's a guy that's going to hit 280. He's going to steal 30 bases. He's going to play really good defense. Even I think at shortstop, I think he is more suited for second base, but I think he would do perfectly fine at shortstop. So I do not hate the Nico Hoerner idea. It's just, why would the Cubs trade him? I don't know. But I don't mind Nico Hoerner, again, if they could make something work there. If the Cubs were looking to part ways, he would be a free agent after next year. He's only under contract for one more year at $12 million. So it'd be a short-term solution there, unless you obviously work out some sort of extension with him. And then the part two from Calvin says, we know the Rays have been interested in Sean Murphy. Do you think we can match up on a Murphy for Brandon Lowe swap? He can cover left field and play second, third in the event we have injuries. Bear with me one second. I wanted to look up the contract status of Brandon Lowe because I thought he was becoming a free agent, or maybe he has an option for this year. But I do like him. He has an $11.5 million team option. So that almost feels like it's going to get picked up. He'll be 31 next year. What is that team option? Is it $12 million? $11.5 million. So Sean Murphy making 15. The Rays just aren't going to make a trade for when they're paying more money for the players that they're getting. I don't think so. But I do like Brandon Lowe. If you can get him over, I don't know if it's Lowe, but I do like him a lot for that second base backup when, Ozzie eventually does get injured. Although he's had his own injury issues as well and trouble staying on the field. But I don't think a Sean Murphy, straight up Sean Murphy, Brandon Lowe swap works out. There's going to have to be more to it. I got several more questions to get to on today's episode. We'll get into the rest of your questions here next.
Fellas, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. Because Go Long combines two doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can both get hard and go the distance. It's a game changer for confidence. The effects can last up to 36 hours, which is confidence both all day and all night, and even into the next day. Super simple process, 100% online. You connect with a board-certified doctor, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. So if you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rugiet, RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you.
All right, thanks again for joining me on today's episode. We'll jump into the rest of these questions here. The next one from Manleo says, regardless if and who AA will add, do you think that we will like it? I'm trying to think. I don't know of a move AA's made that I just absolutely hated when it was made. Certainly there are some moves in hindsight we can look back, like the Jared Kelenic move, like the William Contreras move, that we can look back and say, okay, that might not have been the right decision. I know a lot of people were up in arms about the William Contreras trade when it happened, and I know I was lukewarm on it when it went down. Felt like kind of a lateral move at best. But I can't think of a move that I just absolutely hated. So I think there will be moves that we like as long as they're big moves. I mean, if it's like last offseason and it's just a bunch of minor league deals trying to get guys, and there'll be some of that, and I think you have to take those shots and those risks on those minor league deals, hoping that guys kind of refine their form. Those moves are fine. That's why, again, like I said, I didn't hate any of those moves last offseason, but they need to be coupled with some bigger moves, some more proven and, as surefire as they can be type of moves. And the other part of the question was, are you buying us being close to the third luxury tax threshold next year? I am. Again, I will be upset if there's not a lot of money spent this offseason. You reset the tax last year. You went into the season with kind of bad vibes, whether the players felt that or not. Kind of went into the season with bad vibes as you didn't do much to kind of help what was a disappointing 2024 season. And it was really just going into this year built on, we were injured last year. This year we're healthier. We'll stay healthier and we'll win this time. That was kind of the mantra going into the season. And you just kind of rested on that last offseason because it seems like they wanted to get under the tax. Well, you got under the tax, you better spend big now. So I am certainly expecting them to go spend big and go well into the tax this upcoming season. Does it matter what this says, and does it matter? You think AA already knows or has a very good idea who will be the next coaching next season? He usually seems on top of things in general and keeps most things close to the vest. It feels like we will be getting an announcement very soon who the coach will be. I don't think he has I think he has an idea. He probably has a good list at this point, but I don't think we'll get an announcement anytime soon because I think some of the best candidates might still be in the postseason right now. My top candidate is still in the postseason right now as I'm recording Friday afternoon. That could change after Friday night. Let's go Mariners. But so I think he has an idea of who he would like. And like I said, after his comments last weekend where he said he didn't have his list, they haven't started it, I rolled my eyes because you had to know this was coming. And so I would be shocked if he didn't at least internally already be thinking of some names and some guys to replace Brian Snitker. If he wasn't doing that, I would be upset with him as a GM that he wasn't that forward thinking. So I'm pretty sure he has a good idea of who his top candidates will be and who he wants to interview. But I do think it is going to be a little bit of a slower process than we would like. I don't think it's going to be, anytime soon. I'd probably say at least another 2 weeks. But we'll see what happens. But to answer your original question, I do think he has a very good idea of who he would like it to be. But I think, again, he might still be waiting on some of these coaches to get out of the postseason. Ransom says the Braves need to add 1, maybe 2 starters in the offseason. What free agents do you see AA targeting? Let me look up free agent starters real quickly. And again, we'll have fuller episodes on this once we actually get to the offseason or get a little bit closer later this month. But just looking at free agent starting pitchers, I'm not of the mind that it has to be a top end starting pitcher. Would love that, obviously. I mean, I'd love a full stable of top of the rotation arms in my rotation. Who wouldn't? But that's not a necessity for me because you have Chris Sale, you have Spencer Schwellenbach, you have Spencer Strider. If those 3 guys are healthy, I think they can go up against any rotate. Look at the rotations in the postseason right now. People are trying to piece together what they can to have enough pitchers to get through a 5-game series. Even you got several teams using bullpen games just to try to get through a 5-game series. Like not many teams go into the postseason with 3 starters that they really trust to start a game. And I think the Braves, again, if healthy, which is a big if, have that. So just if my wish list, go get Ranger Suarez, go get Dylan Cease. I would absolutely love that. Go get those 2 guys, and nobody's going to have a better pitching staff in baseball than the Atlanta Braves. But I think you could also go get Zach Gallen. I'd be okay getting a Merrill Kelly, a Chris Bassett, somebody of that level. Again, it doesn't have to be top for me, but I think you do have to go out and get some veterans, some guys, Zach Eflin's, guys that can eat some innings, give you quality innings. I think that is certainly fine if they are to do that. So again, I'll get deeper into that once we get closer to the offseason, guys that I do really love. But just looking quickly at the list of unrestricted free agents, again, we got player options, team options. There could be more guys come available. Those are some of the names that just pop off to me as ones that on my wish list. Give me Ranger, give me Dylan Cease, give me Michael King. Yeah, I would love that. But I think there's a level below that too, that you get 2 or 3 of those guys, and I'm perfectly happy. Couple more questions here. This one from Dave Bessie, who says Drake Baldwin needs to play every day. That makes Sean Murphy the backup catcher. Is the front office okay paying $15 million to a backup catcher? Would they try to DH Murphy, who is now a sub 200 hitter? Does he have any trade value now that he is injured? So to your last question, I thought it was pretty plausible that Sean Murphy gets moved this offseason. But with the injury, I think it's less likely to happen. So I think Sean Murphy's going to be back next year. As far as your first question, are they okay with a backup catcher, paying a backup catcher $15 million? I think so, because of the fact that you're paying Drake Baldwin nothing at this point. So it's not like you're you're paying a lot to your primary catcher. I mean, yeah, if you could move Sean Murphy and move up and allocate those funds to shortstop, outfield, DH, that would be ideal. But it's not like you're paying two catchers $15 million. You're paying one catcher, pretty much league minimum, and you're paying another one $15 million, who I still think is going to play a lot, and I still think he's the better defensive catcher. I think it's likely you see Sean Murphy, start behind the plate 3-4 times a week, and you get Drake at DH and the catcher spot, 6-7 days out of the week. So I think Sean Murphy's going to be back next year. I do think his trade value is so low right now that you wouldn't want to trade it while it is that low. And so I don't think he gets moved this offseason. Last one from Chris 1414 says, could you see Bo Bichette coming to the Braves as a shortstop DH and also bringing back Ha-Seong Kim instead of getting an extra starting outfielder? You could move Albies, Ha-Seong Kim, and Bichette around the DH position. So it's an interesting thought. One, I don't think they're going to pay Bo Bichette. What did I just say? Bo Bichette, because I think he's going to be one of the top players on the market. And I think he's going to get 30 plus million a year. And I just don't think the Braves are going to pay that, especially for somebody who's maybe not going to be at shortstop long term. But the idea, I think, is sound in that you just go get the best bat, whatever the best value is. And if it happens to be somebody that also can play shortstop and play the infield, you worry about that later. Now, I think ideally you get the best bat who can play outfield. And if they can play center field, even better. I think that is the best fit for what the team needs. But I think you just go get the best bat out there for the best value. And then you kind of worry about that, even if Ha-Seong Kim stays. My issue that I said the other day with the pros and cons of Ha-Seong Kim is that you get Ha-Seong Kim and you say, that's our big bat of the offseason. No, it's not. It can't be. So I like your line of thinking, and I think that is okay. I think they do need to look for, even if Ha-Seong Kim stays, to find a big bat, wherever that is. Maybe they do want to pay Bo Bichette. Fine, that's fine. Play him at shortstop, play him at second, put him at DH, whatever the case may be. Teach Ha-Seong Kim to play left field. You can find ways around that. Just get a bat, get a big bat. I don't care where they play, what position they are. Again, ideally, it's somebody who can play the outfield. But yeah, I think they still need to find a way to get a big bat however they can. Did I say Boba Fett, Mass? Is that what I said? I'm not sure how that came out there. But either way, thank you all for joining me. That's all the questions. Thanks so much for submitting those in. Stole Still Burns, Chris, Chad, thank you all for joining here live. Chad says, Nick Allen is your best option at shortstop, and his offense will come around like it did in April. I'm not betting on that. But I do think he's would be a solid backup. And I think if Ha-Seong Kim doesn't come back, there's a good chance we might see Nick Allen again next year. Josh Ghetto says, are there any teams with highly rated shortstop prospects pushing out veterans we could target and trade? Josh Lawler of the Diamondbacks is the only one that really comes to mind. Of course, they could put him at third base. There's certainly other ways that they could use him. But yeah, there's not a lot out there. As Chris Hester said, the shortstop field is so thin this year. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out if Ha-Seong Kim doesn't return. But thank you all so much for joining me on today's episode. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. We will talk to you next time.